Welcome everyone. Attorney Riley Dana here. I'm joined by my friend today, Ryan Comstock. Ryan is a what's that?
I said hi, Rylas.
Hello. So Ryan is a probate certified realtor, and we had a chance to work on a really fun transaction in Tucson. We're going to tell you about that. But first, let's talk about some probate basics. So
my question as we were talking, Rylas, is could you just explain for people what the probate process is really like here in Arizona?
Yeah. And thanks for those watching live and those watching from the future on the replay. Either way, if you have a question or a comment, go ahead and leave it. We'll try to get to it if we can here on the live or in the future as well. So I have a little presentation here about probate. Let me share my screen here. Okay, so this is the way I evaluate estates. So what to do after the loss of a loved one. First question is, what are the assets? Are there retirement accounts, life insurance, bank accounts, real estate? What are we dealing with? So ideally, you have some financial records so you can find these things, but sometimes it's kind of a search for clues, like finding statements at the house or just figuring out what they owned. All right, let's define some of the players. Decedent. What is a decedent? Have you heard that word, Ryan?
Oh, yes, all the time. It's the person who's passed away, and the family and heirs are trying to settle their estate, correct?
Correct. The dead person. So I use this little ghost to kind of represent when someone's passed away. Fiduciary. We got this little bookkeeper hat. So fiduciary is who's going to be in charge. And we got a hand for the beneficiary, who gets the stuff.
I like this.
So very, very simple. Try to keep it, 6th grade level.
Yeah.
So an estate, what is an estate? Is it a large house? I mean, sometimes people say that, but what I mean in this context in estate planning, we mean everything owned by a person. So my friend here, Mr. Estate, now that he's gone, his bank account and his house that's still in his name, it's said to be in his estate. So fiduciary is the person who acts for the benefit of another. I use this green hat to represent the fiduciary. Now, fiduciary duty means that legal obligation, that they have to act in the best interest of others. Okay, so what about this? You probably get this question too. So what if there is no will? What then? What? So if there's no will, the fancy word for it is called intestate. Intestate just means there's no will. So if someone did not have a will, we look to the state laws of intestacy to determine who the beneficiaries will be. And those laws, that also tells us who has the priority to serve as a personal representative. So that's what we do if there's no will.
What do you mean? What do you mean by priority?
Yeah. So by priority, let's say a person was married and then they had kids from a prior relationship.
Okay.
So if that person passed away, the spouse would have higher priority to serve as a personal representative than the kids.
All right.
Now, the kids are next in line for priority.
Okay.
Now, if a person passed away and was not married and they had just 3 kids, then each of those kids would have equal priority to serve as a personal representative. But that surviving spouse, I think that's the most common example. The surviving spouse has priority in favor of the kids.
Okay.
So all things being equal, let's say the kids wanted to be in charge and so did the surviving spouse. All things being equal, the judge is going to pick that spouse because of that priority. Now this got Uncle Sam here, just showing that you have to do a probate to activate the will. So a will says who's going to be in charge, but it doesn't actually give them the authority.
Okay.
So this example, yeah, so a will, that's where you name the beneficiaries of your estate.
So
If you
what
have,
and the will, so what you mean is the the probate gives the person the authority to do it once that's filed in court.
correct. Yeah. So a will says who you want to be your personal representative.
Mhm.
But the example that I like to use, let's see, I have it like right here. She passed away, and we have this bank account just in her name. So even though he's listed in the will as the personal representative and the beneficiary, if he walks into the bank and says, "Hey, can I have the money?" What do you think will happen?
No.
Right. The bank will say, "We need a court order, proving that you have authority for the estate." So that's what probate is. It's that process to appoint the personal representative of the estate. And the reason we hear bad things about it is because it can take quite a bit of time. So generally like to avoid this. Now, if it's after the fact, if there's assets in the name of the deceased, this is the process to collect them. So we can do an informal probate if everyone's in agreement. Formal probate if there's any if we don't have all the kids in agreement, then we have to have a hearing, which is called a formal probate.
Okay.
Now, what's nice about these formal probates is those are done by video as well. So
Oh,
we go
really?
to court via video. So I didn't really do those in the past, but now I don't mind doing a formal probate now that I can go to court right here in my office. I'll just put on a jacket and a tie to look presentable like you if I was going into court.
Sure.
But it's nice you can do it right from and the other person doesn't have to go to court either, so they can appear from their home.
Really? Okay.
All right. Now, was this one of your questions? How long is probate?
Yeah, that was one of my questions on what are you seeing as the normal time frame? Because for most of the probates I work on as a probate realtor, I think it's about 6 to 8 months total. But I'd love to know what you think on that.
I think that'd be pretty fast, I would say. So let's
Okay.
let's run through the timeline. So once someone hires us, it takes us about 2 to 3 weeks to get that first application done. And some of that is dependent on the clients, right? If we have to chase down 5 beneficiaries and get them to sign, to name their brother, that can take a while. Now, once we get everything filed, then we're usually looking at between most courts about 2 to 3 weeks to approve. So it sits there for 2 to 3 weeks before they approve it, and then we get our after our personal representative is appointed, we have to start the 4-month creditor period.
Sure.
This is, no matter what, that's why it takes at least, once we get them appointed, then we have to wait at least 4 months.
Okay.
Now, depending on the type of assets, if they're able to collect all the assets during that 4-month period, then we can close it right after that. But I have probates open, it's been years because we have things, they're trying to sell some real estate still, or there's
Really?
weird assets that can take time. But if everything's pretty straightforward and we get the house sold right away, if there is one, I usually tell people about 9 to 12 months.
9 to 12. Okay.
Okay, so this is just a quick review on that. So find the assets, define the players, and then figure out what controls. So if the house is titled in the name of the deceased, it's going to be in their estate. But if it's titled in the name of a trust, it's going to be controlled by the trust. And then if accounts have beneficiaries listed, like IRAs usually have a beneficiary listed. So that beneficiary designation is going to be controlling. So the trust only controls assets that are titled in the name of the trust. The will controls assets titled in the name of the deceased. If there's no will at all, then we go to the laws of intestacy and look to see who the beneficiaries will be. And then if it's a trust, we follow the terms of a trust. So, all right. Any other questions about probate, Ryan?
Oh, I've got a bunch of great questions for you.
Awesome.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you this. Well, first off, you said that you've got some of them that have lasted for years. What's the longest probate you've ever done, Rylas?
I don't know, maybe a few years, if they get, like there's lingering assets that, like I have some where there's like some difficult properties, where they're unable to sell them.
Sure.
And it's, or if you get people fighting, you can take time too, if they fight every step of the way.
Okay, so that kind of leads into my next question, because people, when they're doing a probate, they're always worried about an heir disputing or fighting, right? How successful are people who challenge or dispute in a probate?
Yeah, good question. I've been doing this for a long time. Every family is different, but we start to see some patterns. And
Okay.
a lot of times, I would say most families are kind of nervous about one person, right? There's usually one person that's kind of a wild card that they're worried they might do something.
Yeah.
So I feel like the best defense is a strong offense. The best thing to do is just to start administering it perfectly. So if the assets are owned by a trust, we'll follow all the rules of the Arizona Trust Code and the Arizona laws or California laws. If it's there, we'll give notice to all the beneficiaries and start going through the motions. So it's pretty common that families are worried about maybe one sibling or one family member, but I would say it's more rare they actually do anything.
Okay.
Now, like I said, I've been doing more formal probates lately. Now that I can go there via video.
Yeah.
I met with a client just earlier today, signing all the paperwork, that first process for a formal probate. And I was explaining to him that it's pretty common, that people can be upset and not like it. But if they want to challenge the formal probate, they can show up to that hearing and object. But after they object, they have to file in writing and they got to pay money. So what I found is there can be a lot of people that are maybe upset, or it's interesting. We'll talk more about it later, but it's the emotions with these families, right? Sometimes it goes back for years and years and just kind of deep-suited things where they just don't want to see their brother or sister get anything. It's not that they want it, but they're just trying to be a pain.
Okay, so they're really not successful when they're disputing then?
Yeah, I would say it's for me it's less common that they will actually go through the motions and file a formal objection in writing and then lawyer up and then make their case.
Okay.
So that's less common, I would say. Those are ones that just kind of stick out more though. But sometimes they're going to fight just all the way to the bitter end, and some people are just litigious. Where I think they enjoy it. Where they they got their attorney on retainer and they're geared up. It doesn't matter how much they got to spend, just as long as their brother doesn't end up with it or whatever the motivation is.
Isn't it interesting in probates too? There's always one sibling who's looking to cause the trouble.
Yeah.
So one of the questions I did have for you is, I work in Tucson, which is Pima County. Is there any difference in the probate process between Maricopa County, which is Phoenix, and Pima County, which is Tucson?
A little bit, but not really. That's stuff my paralegal Lori knows about and it kind of reminds me of it. It's minor and subtle things, I would say.
Okay.
Like just color ink to sign in. Like some counties we can't sign in blue.
Really?
Mostly just subtle things that doesn't really affect the consumers.
Okay, good. All right.
There's one, it might be Pima. There's one, we had a probate get rejected and they wrote on it, no loose papers. And we're like, what do you mean? So I was like, wow, they sent it back to us just because of that. And I guess we actually pay for the return envelope. So they sent it back in our return envelope, no loose papers. And she called them. They're like, no, we like it stapled here in this county. We don't like loose papers.
Okay.
So it's little things like that, just filing preferences. It doesn't really affect the public, but it's
So
basically,
some who's a personal representative in Pima County can hire an attorney up in Maricopa County, and it's not going to really make any difference then.
just as long as they're familiar with the rules in Pima County.
Okay.
So I don't have an office physically located in Pima County at the moment, but I have a lot of Pima County clients.
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot of probates in Pima County there. A lot of my clients are out of state too, where they're not in Pima County either, but they just need an Arizona attorney, someone's familiar and licensed here, and then willing and familiar to work in that county.
Yeah, I find on a lot of my probates too as a probate realtor that yes, I don't even meet the clients. I've got people right now, they're in Montana. I've never even met with them. It's all over the phone, not even video chat with these folks.
Yeah. So part of the ways we're able to be effective is how we met, right? Through, when we had a situation where I needed someone there in person in Tucson to, to meet the family and do other things. So you being the boots on the ground there were able to help, my client who was out of state, and then as well as me who's out of county, I guess you could say.
So that was my next question is, sometimes when I'm talking to personal representatives, they'll say to me, oh, we've got an attorney, like it's a family friend, but you're a probate attorney. So why is it important for the personal representatives to work with a probate attorney like you versus another type of attorney?
Yeah. So if there's an attorney that's doing divorce and DUI and bankruptcy and all of these other things, how good are they really going to be at probate? So it's important to have someone who's experienced in that practice area. And I would say someone who focuses only on that practice area. So we help people, I do the estate planning as well. I help people set up their estate plans. But what makes me really good at that is I'm familiar with administration on the back end. I know what it looks like to actually administer the trust or to administer an estate when there is no plan.
Okay, interesting. So I've got some other good questions. Maybe you like this. So often the PRs who are out of state will ask me as a probate realtor to go over the house, and they're really wanting me to help them with marshaling the assets. Do you have any advice for personal representatives when they're in that process of marshaling all the assets? And maybe if you could explain what marshaling the assets are to people who may not be aware of that.
Yeah. So once the person's appointed through the probate, or if it's a trust, the trustee, they need to safeguard all of the assets. So that means, getting an idea of what there is. And with real estate specifically, I recommend that they change the locks on the house.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that there's not any neighbors or anyone else that has access to it. And then you got to watch out for like squatters as well too. You want to make sure that no one else is moves into the house or things like that. And then if the plan is to sell the house, to get it listed as soon as possible. Now, a lot of times I would say that's kind of a tip people have clued in on, right? So a good realtor will serve that role as their boots on the ground. Like, yeah, I want you to sell the house, but can you also go over there for me and give me an idea what's in there? They might be in New York, and they're just trying to get a sense of this is something where they need to book a flight and get out here, or is it something that can be handled from afar?
Yeah. Okay. A couple other quick questions for you. So if somebody's watching this is about to be appointed as a personal representative, what is the most common mistake that you see personal representatives make, Rylas?
Most common mistake as a personal representative, I would say we see this a lot where people will start the process on their own.
Yeah.
And then they get overwhelmed and realize that they want help. And they come to us for help, which is great. But I would say, even though they started on their own and they spent a lot of time, it doesn't save us a lot of time, because we still got to go backwards and make sure that they did everything right. And then in some cases redo things. and then go forward to get it done that way. So I would just say, be very careful about taking it on your own. If you're, not comfortable about, finishing the whole process. And the other thing too, I would tell the personal representative is you're entitled to payment for your time. So the time that they spend and the liability that they take on to become that personal representative, they're entitled to reasonable compensation. So that comes off the top, right from the estate or right from the trust. And that's something I do as well. If they hire me, I help them determine what that fair fee is for them.
Okay. Now, when you say the fair fee for them, does it vary depending upon what are the circumstances that it would vary?
Yeah. So like my legal fees, they vary depending on the number of beneficiaries there are, the types of assets and,
Okay.
and other factors like that. Kind of, I'll call it the old fashioned way or kind of the basic way is simply time, right? Just how much time it's going to take. But
Well, I meant the fee that they would charge as the PR, because I've heard some people say, "Well, I'm charging $20 an hour," and then I had another guy who was a personal representative. He was billing $50 an hour. It seems to
yeah,
be it varies across the way, right?
yeah. So me as an attorney, when I represent a trust or an estate, I'm usually billing on flat fees. I
Okay.
figure out I have a good idea of what it's going to take where I can quote a flat fee. But I recommend my clients do the same thing for their trustee fee and PR fees. I don't turn it into an hourly rate because that's a losing proposition because
So,
everyone lies about their time, right?
interesting.
And then the other question is how do you figure out a fair hourly rate? We had an attorney in Chicago that charged like $1,100 an hour, right? As his billable. Is that fair for him to charge that when he's serving as the PR? I would say no, absolutely not.
Well,
So
what about the guy who, he works as a school teacher and he's been appointed as PR for his sister's estate? Is he going to bill more, or is he going to bill less than a guy who's a doctor who's now the PR? Does it depend upon like what you do for your career on the billing time, or?
not really, not really. It's kind of like that. Like if you're a surgeon or like that lawyer I use billing
Yep.
$1,100 an hour, that doesn't mean you're going to take your same rate into this.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
So So
Um,
I've been on all sides of the argument, right? I've had people say my fees are too high. I've been on, the other side saying their fees are too high. And when it comes down, you just have to be able to justify it. The law is very simple. Like for the PR fees, it says reasonable compensation.
that's all it
And
says.
yeah, and it says that depends on, time, the difficulty and other factors.
Huh. So
So
that's
that's
pretty big.
Yes. So I so that's the main benefit. That's one of my selling points for the trustees and the PRs, where I say, how much do you want to charge? And then I go, cool, how are you going to sell that to your family? Do you need help selling that to your family? And
Right.
then that's kind of what I help them with. So a lot of times I have their fees match what my fees are. So if
Interesting.
my fees for the probate end up being 10,000, I recommend that they charge the same.
That's a great answer. Okay. So I
It
asked, what
is.
is the common mistake you see PRs make? What is the biggest mistake that you see PRs make, or is it about the same?
Um, one would be just sometimes they commingle assets. It's always a big no-no. Sometimes they're like, oh, I didn't want to put it in the estate account. I just put it in my own bank account for safekeeping. And it's like,
Okay.
no, no, no. You always want to keep, the estate assets in the estate bank account or the trust assets in the trust bank account.
Hmm. So that's the
So
big one. Is the commingling of assets.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So
People don't
that's
realize what a big deal it is, but
so
it's like when
you
you're
this. You shouldn't commingle the estate's assets with your personal accounts. That's a big no-no.
yeah.
Okay. I could see people doing that more out of ignorance than being malicious.
Right. That's usually what it is. They just, it's just easier for them to put it in their own account. They know they got to keep it safe, so they get kind of nervous and just want to hurry and deposit proceeds.
I got one final question. So you were just saying like what your value proposition was to personal representatives. Why should personal representatives hire you? Do you do anything different, or what do you think your value proposition is? So if somebody's in Tucson, Arizona, and they're watching this and they're like, I need to get an attorney to help with my estate, why should they call your law firm?
Yeah, good question. So I brag about my team a lot. I think you've got to know some of them, but I have a great team from Brooke and Raquel that help on the phones. Lori, my probate paralegal. So if you call during the day, I'm not going to answer, but someone will. And I'm rarely available, but Lori and my team is more available. So they were able to give great service to people. So the thing that we provide when people hire us, the biggest compliment that we get is when people say, "Oh, that was easy." At the end of it, they go, "Oh, wow, that was much easier than I thought." So that's what I'm shooting for. By having a good team and an experienced team, we're able to guide people through the process. And the experience means that we're anticipating things, right? We know when things are going to be an issue before they happen a lot of the times, instead of it being a surprise at the last minute.
And I did find that on the one we did down here, your office was very responsive, and it seemed like someone always picked up the phone, which, as we know, is becoming more and more rare nowadays, right?
Yeah. So my fees are fair. That they're not cheap, but what I warn people of, there's always someone that will do it for cheaper. But what I warn them of is, if you're hiring a one man show attorney, what kind of service are you expecting to get, right? They're if they're meeting with another client or in court, there's no one available to talk to you. And then a lot of times people end up using these lower cost options like a paralegal or someone like that, and then they get in over their head and they're not able to get it done, and then they come back to me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks, man. You answered all my questions. I really, I think the one I liked the best was the commingling of assets, because I can see that as a common mistake people might make, and that could get them in some trouble, right?
Yeah. So what I tell people a lot is the law doesn't care about the truth, it's the perception, right? It's what it looks like. So it
Yeah.
doesn't matter that your intentions were pure. It looks really bad if you're mixing it in your own personal account.
Yeah. Okay.
So, all right, should we talk about that situation that we had a chance to work on?
I thought we should. That was that was a challenging challenging situation, and I want to compliment us. We handled it wonderfully.
Yeah, we did. We both did. We both did great. So we should, pat ourselves. Let's lay a little groundwork, and then the viewers, I think they'll agree with us. So from my end, this was a client that hired me to represent him as the trustee. So his father passed away, and his dad was remarried. I think about 10 years ago, I want to say. His dad got remarried, and over the last couple of years, they both had their health issues. Now, dad, when he got married, he did a prenup. So there was a premarital agreement, and then there was a trust that also mentioned this premarital agreement, and then there was a couple other amendments, family agreement. And so he came to see me after dad passed away. And what made this so interesting from the legal perspective is there was different outcomes for that surviving spouse based on if she was living in that house or if she was incapacitated. Now, the facts of the matter is that she had not been living in the house for several months, and she needed her own care, and she was unable to take care of herself. Another kind of complication too is that surviving spouse was named as a successor trustee. So son came to see me, and the documents were kind of vague and ambiguous, but after going through them, I able to make the position, able to determine that it looked like what they were trying to do is that if his wife was still living in the house and able to live there herself, she would have gotten half the proceeds of the house. But if wife was not living there and needed her own care, the house was to be sold and all of the proceeds would go to my client. So there's kind of some, big difference and a little bit of ambiguity. And so we did, like what I told you there, is we just started administering this trust, right? I was worried that it was a little hard to follow potentially.
Yes.
But luckily we were able to get him appointed as a trustee. When he went to the bank, he had a little bit of pushback, but just a normal amount, right? Even if everything's perfect, the banks still get a little confused about, if you actually have the authority. So we were able to get him appointed over the bank accounts, and then the house, because wife's stuff was still in the house. We let them know once we got the son appointed. We let them know that the plan was to sell the house.
Yeah.
And wife has had a son.
Yes.
Who was very aggressive. So my client from out of state was very, very sharp, and he was a firefighter. Everyone loves firefighters, right? All the women love firefighters. They're the heroes, right? And they're usually pretty level-headed too. So a lot of my clients tell me, "Oh, my brother's crazy, this and that," or kind of be worried about him. But I'm like, yeah, whatever. Everyone says that.
Take it with a grain of salt, because in these probates and trusts, there's always a little emotions, and they always say the other side is crazy or whatever. So I think we always kind of take it with a grain of salt, right?
Yeah. And then we'll fast forward a little bit. So we had to let we gave his wife notice that the house was going to be sold and she needed to get her personal property out. And then this is where you come in to save the day, because we're like, all right, so my client was like, I do not want to be at that house with her son. He said, I feel that he is dangerous, and he told me he already lost his kids too. This is kind of like another thing. I'm just kind of like noting everything. I'm like, all right, if this person lost their kids, that doesn't happen easily, right? There's probably a reason. Or this person may be a little bit more, more of a loose cannon, so to speak. So
I recall the fear was that we wanted someone to be there because we were afraid that the stepmother would move in, start living in the house, and then change the locks and claim she was living there so she could get half of the money. That was the big fear.
Yes. So that was a real concern.
Yeah.
So the concern was that just by letting her in to get her stuff, and then I think some of this was kind of driven by her son too. So mom was kind of out of it. She is, she was her, mentally she wasn't, fully capable at this point. But I think son kind of saw the writing on the wall, and he was financially motivated, was trying to do what he could. So that's where you. I think we reached out and asked that, hey, can you be there, right? Can you help facilitate? I think I first asked, do you know anyone that could? I wasn't expecting you to do that yourself. But if you could connect me to anyone, in the Tucson area that would be willing to do that.
Well, and knowing that their goal may have been to move into the house, and then exchange the lock so they could get half the money. I figured it was best that I go over there, so I could at least see what they were doing and keep an eyeball on them versus allowing someone that we hired. So I did go over there, and I agreed to meet with him, and he was so nice to me on the phone, Rylas. We were like buddies. We were just joking and talking about everything. He was so nice, and I said I would meet them over at the house so they could get their possessions out of the house. And everything was great. And I think what turned him was that I said they only had 4 hours. I think we'd given them 4 hours to get the stuff.
Yeah, and I think this was like a Friday afternoon too, right? Maybe even like a holiday weekend too, going into.
Yeah. It was a Friday afternoon, and we told them that they had 4 hours.
And I think that's kind of the time they picked too, right? Not the most convenient, but he was going to be there, that day. And then so you offered him 4 hours, which is more than enough, right? Because it wasn't most of the furniture there belonged to my client.
Correct. Yeah.
So it was mostly just like her personal items and things like that.
And some pictures. It wasn't a lot of stuff. And he was so nice. And then when I told them, hey, we've got to wrap it up, we've only got 4 hours, and come back, for anyone watching this, we'd all been warned this guy was a loose cannon, but he'd been nothing but nice the whole way. And when I told them they had 4 hours, it was like he snapped. And it was like he was on steroids or drugs. And he just turned into the Incredible Hulk, screaming and yelling. And he was like right in my face. I'm a big guy. I'm 6'1", 225. This guy must have been 6'4", 270 pounds. He had both of his fists balled up, screaming that and cursing that we had. I think he said we screwed him over, cursing at us. And I thought I was going to get punched. He was right in my face, spits hitting me in the face, and he had his hands balled up. And I thought he was going to punch me out, Rylas. I was the first time in my career I thought this guy was going to punch me.
Yeah. And then I think you called me right after that.
Yeah. So I just told the guy I'm going to step outside after he'd been screaming at me for about a minute. I stepped outside. I called you on the phone. It must have been 6:30 at night. You actually answered. And what did you tell me? Call the cops?
Yeah. It was one of those situations. Things always happen like on the weekends, or like I was on call basically. I don't want to leave you hanging there, right? I knew you were there, like dealing with it. And yeah, I told you like, yeah, call the cops if you have to. I'm like, so you explained to me what happened, how he got in your face, and how you thought he was going to punch you. And I was like, man, that sucks. So yeah, I was like, call the cops then. This sounds like it's not going to go the easy way, but yeah, just call the cops and let them handle it, and let them know that you were sent there by the trustee, and basically call the cops and call me back if you have to. If it gets to that, call the cops, and then we'll deal with it. So I was nervous for a while then after that conversation, and then.
So I went and sat in my car, and I'm nervous, waiting for this guy to come out and fight me. And we sat there, and they loaded their stuff into the truck. And then he walked up to me, and he goes, "Okay, we're all done. See you later." It was like he flipped a switch and just went crazy. I still think he was on steroids.
Yeah.
Just lost his mind.
Yeah, and then you called me, and I saw the call. I was like, great. I'm like, man, police are probably there. I'm like, how bad is it? And but you're like, he left. Everything's fine. Like it went easy. Luckily, that was the report. But these estate situations, a lot of times it seems like beneficiaries are just trying to like sneak in, right? Just kind of slide in somehow, or just find some sort of angle. So it seemed like that was definitely the move he was trying to make. But he realized it was not going to be easy to make, right? He would have had to make more of a scene to try to assert that position. So luckily that was the end of that. And then after that, it went pretty straightforward. You got the house sold right away.
Smooth sailing. Yeah. And to this day, I still think if I'd done something I tried to de-escalate the situation and get out of there. I think if I'd yelled back at him or something, I think he would have hit me. But, I just walked out and said, I'm going to walk outside, walked away from him. And I think that worked. But it was one of those cases when, as professionals, we hear about the crazy family member and we just kind of pay no mind to it. I think after this one, I'm going to pay a little more mind to it. Like, maybe they're telling the truth.
Yeah. What I tell my clients is people mourn differently, right? It brings out all different reactions. Sometimes people got to be more of an asshole after, sometimes it's the last time to, and this case, this wasn't even one, he lost his stepfather. I don't think he was even close to that person, but it was just a case of just greed, right? Just simple greed where people see an opportunity to try to make a claim, and then they'll also do that.
I think like what you said there, it's the last opportunity. Sometimes it's like in these probates, it's the last opportunity to settle old scores. Like you treated me differently than you treated my brother. You paid for college for my sister, but not for me. And it's like an opportunity to settle scores. I don't know what this guy's issue was, but yeah, it's a very emotional time.
Yeah. Yeah. I say not boring at least though, right? It keeps it sometimes other lawyers be like, oh, you're an estate attorney. That seems so boring. It's like really, it's like
It can be highly dramatic, can't it?
yeah, it's like a soap opera a lot of times. I wish it was
Yeah,
more boring.
that guy would have knocked my teeth out. He was so big. So I was lucky to get out of there without a broken nose or missing teeth. So yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes, yeah, the probates you have to be able, we have to, as the professionals, be the calming force in the probate and not keep everyone else. We have to be calm.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd say the takeaway, you asked me, why should people hire me? I would say it's my good team, and you're an extension of that, right? So we met through someone that I work with on my Phoenix deals, and she helps me there. And I'm very happy she connected me with you in Tucson to help out, because I'm expecting that higher level of service, right? So it's not any realtor can handle that, right? And facilitate kind of tense
She,
situations like that.
later on, she told me that the reason she hooked us up together was she'd heard about this crazy guy and she knew I was a big guy. And she thought maybe we need a little muscle there on their side. So she didn't give it to like a short little lady. So yeah, it was,
Yeah, so that's good. I'm glad she was thinking of that.
she was thinking ahead. Well, I would tell everyone watching this, if you need a probate attorney, my interactions with Rylas have been fantastic. I do agree with you. Your team picks up the phone, which is becoming less and less common nowadays. And I know our client Matt was really happy with your service, and you were available to us after hours in that emergency. So I think you do a great job for people here in Pima County and of course in Maricopa County.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, and same for you. You handled the situation at the house, and then you also got it sold right away too for a
Good.
great price.
I think we had it sold in 7 days. So
Yeah, so I was so happy to have that one just over and done with. So
now, were you worrying about that one like I was, that at any moment they might come move into the house? Because I was fearful of that.
yes, yeah. That was a concern that any moment we might. You'd go there for a show and you'd be like, there's someone living here and the locks are changed.
That's right. Yeah, I went by that house every week and checked it, and they never moved in. So.
Okay. Well, thanks, Ryan. So how can people find you if they're looking to sell a property in the Pima County area? What's the best way to reach out?
Best way to find me is go to Google and type in Ryan Comstock Realtor, or you can call me on my personal cell phone, 520-488-2982. Again, that's 520-488-2982. But just go on Google, type in Ryan Comstock Realtor, all appear, and you can contact me on my Google page or website or wherever.
Okay, there we go. So I got your phone number and name up on the screen. So there's Ryan Sell. If you need some help in the Tucson area, did a great job for my clients, and sure he will for you too.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, man. And I look forward to our next probate, and hopefully a lot less eventful and no threats of violence on the next one.
Yeah, maybe we're due for an easy one. Now after the hard ones, you get some easier ones in there. All right, well, thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, Rylas. Talk to you later, my friend.